Alright, what's up, motherfuckers? It's Magnum Supreme here, bringing you another little video. Today, you can read by the title, we're going to talk over AK setups for beginners. Now, this is something I do get a lot of questions about in the comments. People asking like, oh, I'm getting my first AK, how do I set it up? Or, what do you think of XXX product? So here I'm going to lay out some opinions on how I like to set up an AK, what I think is like the most combat effective way to set one up. And I've got quite a few examples here. As I'm sure you know, the range of AK pimpness is pretty great. You know, you can get the job done with bone stock, wood stock rifle, like this bad boy right here. But you can also go quite literally full pimp and end up with full handguard rail setups, you know, optics. You can run rail dust covers, side rail optic mounts. There is pretty much no shortage on how to properly and effectively set up an AK. Now, there are wrong ways to do it, don't get me wrong. You can definitely do it poorly, but it's really easy to get it right. So with my help, you'll be fine. So we are going to start out just talking about your bone wood stock AK, because a lot of people just have rifles like this. And a lot of these fancy rails and mounts for your dust covers and shit, they can be quite expensive and quite tedious to install. So, if you're a kind of guy who doesn't like to fucking tinker with his shit and have to use 5 different range trips before the optic or the mount is set up perfectly correct, which can happen in some cases with AKs if you're retarded, then the wood stock rifle is going to be great for you. I promise you, with training and practice and knowledge, you can be just as fast with these AK iron sights as you can with an optic. I've seen it in person. You know, dudes at competitions will show up with a rifle just like this and fucking win the division. Okay, I don't know how they do it. They have skills beyond mine and probably beyond yours, but it's possible, I assure you. One thing that you might notice this rifle is missing is a weapon light. You know, what do you need for a good home defense or combat rifle? You need a sling, an optic, and a weapon light. Well, if you're really poor, iron sights count as optics. If you're really, really poor, this can count as a sling, even though it doesn't function as we want it to. But it's hard to put a flashlight on these things. So our boys at RS Regulate have come up with the BM1 barrel mount. I've featured this on the channel several times. I use this a lot. Fits on any AKM spec profile barrel. They have ones for like AK-47 heavy profile. So you can get them for pretty much any gun. And it just clamps to your barrel. And now you have a fucking flashlight mount here. I think it's pretty excellent and easy solution for a pretty big problem, because bad people like to do bad things in the darkness. You need a flashlight to illuminate them and then shoot them after you properly identify them. That's why we use flashlights, ladies and gentlemen. But if the bone stock wood AKM is not your style, maybe you're looking for a little more performance, then you can run something like this Bulgarian Arsenal 107. This is, for all intents and purposes, still a factory stock rifle. The only thing we've changed is the upper handguard. It's got an Ultimac gas tube on there, which I'll explain here in a moment. It also has its factory 4.5 mil folder stock. You know, look at that stock action. That's a good stock. If you get that reference, you're a real man. Another thing you can do to squeeze a little more performance out of your stock AK is muzzle devices. As I'm sure you saw, I had a muzzle brake on that Romanian wood stock gun, but muzzle brakes can work wonders for you. If your AK is overgassed and has a lot of recoil, you notice that when you shoot it, it's really beating the fucking shit out of you. Muzzle brake, baby. Get you a nice 2-port muzzle brake or more if you're feeling eccentric. And it will eliminate a lot of the recoil out of your shoulder. It will feel much better. However, it will also be louder. It'll be more concussive. And depending on which model you get, it'll throw around more dirt and dust whenever you're firing from the prone position. Just depends on what kind of muzzle brake you end up with. This here is a copy of a Zenitco DTK2. This is the Palmetto State Armory clone of it. And I'll be honest with you, PSA made a pretty decent muzzle brake, but I don't know how you could make a fucking bad one, to be honest. And there's no reason to pay $200+ for real Zenitco muzzle brakes when PSA sells these for like $35. It gets the Magnum Supreme pass, even though it's from poor shit armory. On to the Ultimac gas tube, which if you want to maintain the form factor of your stock AK, I think the Ultimac gas tube is the ultimate choice. As you know from yesterday's video, I've just got this optic here on the side rail mount for testing purposes. The Ultimac is my ride or die bitch. If I had one choice, this is my one choice. As you can see here, it replaces your upper handguard, and below these two bolts here are barrel bands underneath the system that clamp to the barrel. So this gives you a solid and repeatable zero platform for your optics. I can vouch for it. I've had these things for years at multiple matches, out in the woods for countless hours, and they just work. They can, in certain cases, with certain red dots, kill those red dots due to heat transfer because, you know, this is the gas tube. This is where the fire is, and it can get hot. No shit. But as long as you buy decent quality optics, you'll be fine. This very optic right here, I ran on an Ultimac gas tube for like a year straight. Did fine, even at multiple matches in the summertime. No problems here with the Ultimac. So we'll move on to another setup here to kind of show what you can get into for full-length rail systems. You guys have seen this gun plenty on my channel. Maybe the most popular gun on my channel. This is my Yugo M70 with a whole shit ton of rounds on it. She also has the SLR Rifle Works handguard in combination with their proprietary railed gas tube. Now, in a sense, this thing functions exactly like the Ultimac gas tube. As you can see, there's a bolt here with a barrel clamp that clamps to the barrel. However, the handguard itself is the barrel clamp. You'll notice right here, these screws hold in a mounting bracket inside the handguard that wraps around the barrel, and then from the top is secured by this gas tube on both sides. In my experience, this has been just as good, if not better than the Ultimac, and I cannot recommend them enough. Now, however, they are dramatically more expensive than an Ultimac, so if you're balling on a budget, the handguard setup may be a little too much for you, because there's no way to run the SLR gas tube by itself. If you want to run the gas tube, you have to run the handguard. Now, it's not the other way around. You can run the handguard without the gas tube if you really want to, but I wouldn't recommend that. Their handguards are not the greatest thing in the world, because, like, look at this. They're pretty easy to bend and move around and whatnot. Not unusable by any means, but certainly not rock steady, as some would say. I like it though. The SLR gets the job done for me. I'm a really big fan of SLR Rifle Works because of a Russian company called Armacom. This is some real Russian operator AK lore, but there's a company called Armacom from Russia. They make high quality AK rails that are essentially the exact same as the SLR Rifle Works. Now, I don't know who stole the design from who. I'm assuming SLR Rifle Works jacked it from Armacom, but they use the exact same mounting profile and all that shit. It's a gas tube with a handguard that mount to the barrel in combination with each other. They look sick. The Russian rails look a lot cooler than these SLR Rifle Works ones. And I've been trying for a couple years now to track down an actual Russian Armacom set. No luck yet, but trust me, if I get one, you'll see it here first, gentlemen. I mentioned the rail was bendy and won't hold zero for your lasers and stuff, but I don't operate with night vision. Not a concern for me. If you really, really need to get a laser on your AK, just use a dual aligned laser with the offset lasers out to the side, and you can run it on the gas tube, and the front sight post will not obstruct your lasers. Trust me, I got night vision AK homies. I know how to set this shit up. On the end, we have an excellent muzzle brake. This is the Meridian Defense BD2 muzzle brake. Great muzzle brake. Very budget friendly as well. I think these things are less than $50. For 14 millimeter threads, as you see on this M70, I think this is probably the best muzzle brake that you can buy for your AK. Provides excellent recoil control, and it's not very large and obtrusive like some of these Zenitco muzzle brakes can be. Now we'll move on to our final setup, just to talk about, this is my personal favorite setup. And it should be no surprise to anyone that it's the AK-104 from Kalashnikov USA. And as you can see, I still maintain most of the form factor of a stock factory AK. However, she got a facelift. The front end has been essentially completely changed. What we have here is a Zenitco lower handguard. Now, if you're not familiar with Zenitco, Zenitco is a Russian accessory manufacturer for the AK. Their accessories are used by a lot of high-end Tier 1 military units in Russia, and they used to be available in the United States. Previous to the Ukraine war kicking off, you could order Zenitco online, no problem. And it was relatively affordable for what you were paying. It was good stuff. But now, these days, I can't really recommend Zenitco because the performance you get for the price you pay on the secondhand market is not, you don't get that kind of performance, Just for reference, I only have this because the rifle came with this lower handguard, so it was included with the price. I didn't pay any extra for it. And it's nothing special, ladies and gentlemen. It's literally just a quad rail lower handguard. Would it hold zero with a laser? I don't fucking know. Probably not, I'll be honest with you. As is the case with a lot of second-hand Zenitco parts in the USA, this one was filed on a good bit. If you're unaware, some Zenitco products are made to be what they call pressure fit into the AK receiver. That means it's going to be extremely fucking tight, and you're going to have to get out the old hammer to beat it in there. A lot of American guys, like specifically AR-15 enjoyers who are getting into AKs, they don't really understand the way of the hammer, okay? They think they need to custom fit and machine everything to like perfect tolerance. No, you fucking hammer it in there. If you take a file to your Zenitco, you're a fucking gay loser and you're defiling a piece of history right there. You don't file Zenitco, brothers. In any case, you are not supposed to file this shit. It's supposed to be tight going in, and this was not very tight going in. This thing went in smooth as butter. No hammer required, just barely any force. So probably not going to hold zero, and I wouldn't trust it to. But that's why we also have it in combination with the Ultimac gas tube. Now, I'm not sure if these Ultimacs are popular in Russia or not. I would have to assume they are just because of how excellent they are. But the Ultimac upper handguard works perfectly in conjunction with the Zenitco lower handguard. And as you can see, of course, it offers you optics mounting, flashlight mounting. If you needed to, you could put a laser up here. All your fancy doodads and gadgets can go up here on the front end of the AK. And I think it helps maintain, one, the form factor, but two, the balance and the maneuverability of a weapon like this. AKs are always front heavy, always have been. So fucking Hollow Sun 515 and a Surefire Scout Mini is not really putting that much more weight on there, on the front of it. You know, we can still one-hand this bad boy, use it as a dueling pistol. And And that's why it's my favorite setup. Like, honestly, the shorty nature of it, combined with the nice form factor in the rear of an actual AK-100 series, it's just a fun gun to use, and it makes you look like a badass when you use it. Yeah, Zenitco's not as good as everyone says it is, but it's still good. If you can come across Zenitco for a reasonable price, now of course you determine what is reasonable in your case. But for a reasonable price, I think it's great furniture. You know, the Russians like it for a reason. And, little side note, little upcoming piece about some future videos. There are some very, very high quality clones of this Zenitco stuff, made specifically for airsoft guns, believe it or not. But I've bore witness with my own eyes to these airsoft clones fitting on real steel rifles and running and working just as good as real Zenitco. I didn't believe it until I saw it. I've got some on the way, and I will make a video about them whenever they get here. But you guys are just going to have to wait and see. This has been the noob's guide, or like advice tutorial explanation video on some AK setups. I hope you got some kind of benefit out of this video. Thank you for watching.